You don't have to be Beyonce to be in the music industry. You can be any of those 10 people. My advice is always think bigger than just the music itself. Hi, my name is Mayuyuka Kaunda. I'm a music journalist, a playlister, curator, and a music copywriter. Yeah, I work with Afrobeats, I work with hip-hop, African hip-hop, and alternative sounds pretty much from around the world as well. So I started writing music when I was a child, a kid. I was 12 when I first started trying to rap. So I've pretty much been writing. It's almost 20 years. I don't want to give away my age, but it's almost 20 years. I guess the writing and the music was already combined for me. It wasn't something I saw as two different things. Obviously, educationally, I pursued writing because I thought I was good at it and I wanted to get better. And so I studied literature when I got to varsity, and I also studied journalism. But while I was at varsity, I started writing for blogs, basically trying to put in practice what I was learning in class and do it for real, test myself basically. And the easiest thing to talk about was something I pretty much knew about. I stopped rapping when I was probably 18, but I was following hip hop avidly, like I'm a huge fan. So I thought, let me combine the stuff I'm learning in school and my passion. Passion as a listener now, not so much as a doer. And that's how I pretty much started writing about music. I didn't know I would become a journalist, but once I started contributing to blogs and magazines, that turned out to be my job. And yeah, everything is sort of stemmed from that decision I made. I was very, very lucky to listen to so much music because of the way our family was structured. My dad, a bit older, so he'd listen to African jazz, and he studied in the States. So he'd listen to Bruce Springsteen, Bruce Hornsby, American stuff, you know, rock. And my least favorite thing he played was the blues, but then I was exposed to stuff like that. And then I had two elder sisters. My eldest sister was listening to Ace of Base, ABBA, Venga Boys, and my elder sister was listening to NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Darren Hayes, Savage Garden, stuff like that. And I didn't really, you know, you're just hearing this stuff. But what appealed to me was what my brother was playing, because I was intrigued by the swear words in hip hop. It's like, I can't say it, but I can sing it. So he'd listen to a lot of DMX, lots of Tupac. We were a West Coast household, and not so much NWA, but like, I guess lesser known Tampa Bay rappers like E40, other rappers affiliated with Tupac like Big Syke. It was very West Coast, and I really liked it. And from then on, Eminem was a huge thing when I was a teen, rebellious, you know, blonde hair. Pretty much everything a teen, like that's a teen's dream, you know, you can live vicariously through Eminem. Saying and doing really weird stuff that your parents hate. You just want to make your parents a bit like, I guess, angry. It's fun at that age. So all the stuff, when you put it together. Did I mention African jazz that my dad used to play on Sundays? He used to cook this chili that he'd picked up from his time as a student in the States, and whenever he was making it, he was playing some version of jazz. Yeah, so my childhood definitely affected my musical outlook. It's sort of global and local and new and old, and I don't know how I could put this, but sometimes it's crass and sometimes it's sophisticated. Put all that together and you get a balance of these worlds. Yeah, I think urban, it's a term used in very different ways, but I think when most people think urban, they think Black American. I like to think of urban as just what's popular at the time, without any distinctions of who is making it and their background necessarily. That becomes important when you think about what young African artists are making today. So when you think of something like Afrobeats, which has taken off and gone to the world, you know, Burna Boy winning a Grammy, it's not the same as the urban sound you're getting in America at the moment, but it's popular music, right? And the way it fits into the African discourse is, when I was growing up, the conversation was only going in one direction. Whatever was popular in the Western world, we would try and recreate. With Burna and them, it's going that way. Like, it's either a conversation, a fusion, but it's not just, oh, look what's happening there. Let's do it exactly how they're doing it there over here. We're not copying anymore. So it's super important that Africans know that we have pop that is African, and it can be Afrobeats, or it can be Arte, it can be Amapiano, like it can be any genre. If you make it popular enough, that's the language of the time. So urban pretty much should just mean popular music by young people. Yeah, I'd call all the genres I just mentioned, I would call them eligible for being thought of as urban sounds. I will say, I think it's because everyone has a lot more access to things. Back in the day, you'd have to go overseas to get exposed to what they're making over there, and then bring some tapes or CDs back and play it. Not everyone can do that. Now you can log on to YouTube and you can see what's happening in Chicago, see what's happening in Peckham, see what's happening in LA. And you can choose to mimic it, but you can also measure up with your peers from across the globe, because the same way they can be accessed, you can be accessed. I can start a whole career from my bedroom in Lilongwe in Malawi without needing people to come all the way to Africa to be exposed to my sound. So I think technology is probably a big deal. We can spread our music much further, much faster, just through the mediums we choose, YouTube, SoundCloud, even just putting it on streaming sites like Spotify or Apple. It's also much easier to make music. The same way I can upload it in my bedroom, I can literally record the song in my bedroom. So I think a huge part is that technology has leveled out the playing field, and with that, we can also see there's not much difference between young people across the world. They pretty much want the same things and have the same kinds of lives. They chat to each other, they party, they go out, they fall in love, they have heartbreaks. These are universal stories, and anyone from anywhere can tell those stories. So it's just a reflection of how society across the globe has changed. Urban music is awesome because if you make it to the top, you're gonna be really famous because everyone wants to hear what's fresh, right? Everyone sort of is attracted to what's hot, and even if they aren't, I'm sure you know this thing where like you're singing a song, right? And you're like, I don't really like this song, but it's in your head. If something is hot, it goes everywhere. Having said that, I think there's so many different ways to look at the music industry that the fame and the making it on top, it's appealing and it's great that it makes people want to join the music industry. But there's so much that happens around that artist. So if I could advise a young person, I'd ask them to think about what happens around Beyonce. Just think of a normal day and Beyonce wakes up, and think of the team she has to have around her to be Beyonce, right? She has to think of her fashion, she has to think of her diet, she has to work out. You know, there's gonna be someone who has to transport her to where she's going. When she gets to the place to perform, someone had to do the lights, someone had to do the sound, someone had to do catering, someone had to do the logistics for getting 1,000 people to fit in one place. Someone had to make sure that there were health and safety standards, and all that just happens because Beyonce's got a show, right? So my advice would be, you don't have to be Beyonce to be in the music industry. You can be any of those 10 people and still contribute to Beyonce's success and still feel like you're a part of it. I'm not saying don't try be Beyonce, but if you don't become Beyonce, just know that she needs a whole lot of people around her to be Beyonce. And all those people are in the music industry. They are a part of an industry. So I think my advice is always think bigger than just the music itself. We haven't even spoken about Beyonce making the songs. There's a whole team who helps her make the songs too. Producers, engineers, songwriters. Someone has to also manage all those people. Someone has to have Vision Beyonce. she hires someone to do that. It's called a manager, but it's bigger than that. You're doing everything. You're thinking about everyone else's job, and you have to like bring it all together, you know? So it's huge. And that's just one person. Whichever way you look at it, the industry or the creative aspect, there is more than one way to contribute to the industry. And the fame and the riches are awesome, and go for it if you've got the talent and the drive. But that is also super hard because not everyone can work as hard as Beyonce does. So that would be my advice. Just study the infrastructure around anything you're trying to get involved in, and you'll probably find something you like in the pockets. That's why things like lockdown are really taking their toll on the industry, because it's not just people going out to a show and, you know, having a few drinks and listening to music. There's so many other people affected when an artist doesn't get to perform. The venue, the waiters who would get tips, the people who have to transport people back and forth and transport the artist and their team, the accommodation where the artist would have slept. It's like this whole value chain. Weirdly enough, because of lockdown, a lot of people are noticing that value chain exists, and that's sad, right? But it's also an opportunity for us to appreciate artists as entrepreneurs, as business people. They don't just sing and that's it, they go home. They have to go back their takings, pay tax. They hire people. Yeah, as an industry, my experience of it so far is a lot different from perhaps what I was told growing up. Art isn't just removed from society in this rose-tinted way. It plays a huge part in it. One of them is economic, it can be political, it can be literally just soothing for people's health after a long day at a bad job they don't like. So I would want anyone I advise to understand that it's so multifaceted. Art it's not this disposable thing. Just because the song is 3 minutes, and there's a world around, a context around those 3 minutes you're listening to. So music journalism is tough because it's a game of rejection most of the times. You have to pitch your stories to editors and to publications, so you don't always do what you want. Sometimes you get really lucky and people say, hey, would you like to write about so-and-so? And you can say yes or no. You can get commissioned. My goal as a music journalist is I think it's two parts. I like to help people get exposure that perhaps they might not. And I like discovering new stuff and I like sharing it. So I think I have this dual thing of if I love it, I like to share it. And also I don't have to love it, but if it's good enough, it needs to be shared. So I lean towards young African artists. And usually what I look for in any artist I'm listening to or just discovered, it's a bit of originality. I don't know how to put it, but there's one Wizkid and there's one Beyonce, and I guess because they're successful, people want to replicate their sound or their image, and I'm not sure we need another Wizkid. So I think I look for originality and like a purpose to the person's art. So it's great if the song is good. It's also great if there's a great story that goes with the music. I think, and most people actually buy into the story so much more than the actual songs. You can't tell any Beyonce fan anything negative about her because they believe in Beyonce so much. Can't tell any Wizkid FC member that, this Wizkid song is not good. Because there's a story they've bought into. And if you do want to replicate Wizkid, then replicate having a story, not the sound he makes. So yeah, as a journalist, if I can buy into a story, it's my job to pass that story along to an audience on behalf of the artist. That's pretty much our jobs, really. It's what we're supposed to do. It's what we want to do, and it's what I think we should be held accountable for, yeah. Well, during COVID, a lot of artists are realizing that there's very few replacements for live show money, mainly because it's quick. So I think it's important to diversify your your streams of income as an artist. This includes a lot of stuff. There's merchandising. I mean, you can still ship stuff to people, right? Things can still move, right? Even if you're not moving. I think there should be a better understanding of what live means, and by that I mean it's something you'd understand, Joe. You teach online, right? You can perform online. You can also record a lecture. You can also record a performance and charge people to watch it on demand when they choose to, you know. So the idea of what you can do live shouldn't be the venue that's closest to you in a city here. If you can record something and stream it globally, anyone in the world can watch you, and you can also charge in a currency that might be better than your home currency and convert it and make a lot more money than you might have made going across the country on a plane. I also think post-COVID, I would like to see a bit more the strengthening of interdisciplinary relationships. Now that an artist can't perform, a lot more people are realizing just how much they were dependent on that thing on that weekend to happen. Without that, a lot of people are suffering. It affects everyone, even the writer who might go to cover the show that day and, you know, have a great report about what the music was like. We take a photographer with us, so that photographer doesn't have a gig. So I think everyone sort of needs to, I don't want to say the word unionize, but that's what's going on in my head. A concerted effort to come together as an artistic community and have some leverage where we can have conversations with the people in charge. We can't avoid the fact that we are all citizens of a certain type of community, but we're also citizens of just a country, and it would be nice if you could talk to the government before things happen rather than just after. It would be nice to be proactive about what positions the art world wants to take, not just wait for the decision and then be like, oh, this is killing our industry. I think if you can leverage everyone's voice, like the winemakers meeting with the artists, I think you can have a lot more power because we depend on each other. It's a symbiotic relationship. I don't think we should all be siloed because we could have a lot more of a powerful voice if we could lobby the powers that be as one.